All right, we are out here today on the new Evil Following LS. I'm following up Chris, and I got Nate in tow behind. We're just gonna see how this handles the usual track, and a little nervous. This isn't the lightest weight bike I've taken up here, but it's probably close. Luckily, I've had really good luck with this Delta suspension, but we'll have to see how it goes. So to recap this bike, it is a 120 frame with a 130 fork. It's got 29-inch wheels front and rear, and really is just a super playful, quick little ripper. The bike we have here today is the Evil Following LS. This is the GX build. It is on loan from Evil Bikes. Looking in pretty good shape. I really like this mint color. As you know, with the GX builds, you got GX everywhere, except for you do get some nicer brakes. So this one's got a code RS right there, pretty great. Also get the nicer suspension, so Pike Ultimate and Deluxe Ultimate. I definitely misspoke earlier. Some nice Maxxis rubber, front and rear, Industry 9 wheel set, Max grip up front, which thank goodness for that. Maxterra out back, and a bike yoke dropper. There we go. We got to start this ride with a climb, so let's check out the switchbacks. Pretty tight one, but not too hard. There goes Chris, giving up. Let's see how it does on this real tight one. Ooh, that wasn't bad at all. Definitely had to flex forward a little bit, but overall, pretty comfortable, good climbing position. All right, so how's this bike climb overall? Well, the switchbacks were good. It's got a little bit longer body position than a lot of the more enduro bikes I've been riding, so it's really comfortable in that way. You're nice and over the pedals, so your front end's not floating a ton, and the traction's great. It's past damp out today and into slightly greasy, and I am still climbing up over wet roots and slimy mud with no problem. The last thing is efficiency. Definitely, it doesn't feel like there's much of a platform to this rear shock, which is a little confusing. I expect bikes like this to be way over dampened for climbing, and this doesn't feel like that at all, which hopefully is great for the downhill, but does make it so flipping that climb switch makes a difference. But yeah, overall, A+ on switchbacks, A+ on traction, probably B+ on efficiency though. Not something I mind too much as long as it performs well when we're going downhill.
Let's talk geo real quick. On paper, the following still trends XC, but on the trail, it's all spit and vinegar. The 66.4 degree head tube is steeper than I'm used to, and I was surprised when I looked and saw the stack was only 601. Certain parts of this ride I felt it, but it was less noticeable at a place like Galbraith. The 474 reach felt immediately at home. Combined with the 75.5 degree seat tube angle, it made for a great climb. That felt a bit more cross country. The short 432 chainstays and 1205 wheelbase all added up to the following's precise rally car-like handling.
And the fun stuff. It is greasy today. Now caught Blake and woo! Ha! Ooh. And I don't want to say riding scared, but let's get some mud off that lens. That fun?
Yeah.
It's very wet.
A little wet.
To continue my trend of riding short travel bikes on the gnarliest terrain, we have the Evil Following. When the original Following was released, it was a harbinger of things to come. Trail 2.9ers went from cumbersome race bikes where you were positioned on top of the bike, stretched out, and everything felt fast, in the worst sort of way. The Following came in, and just a few years later, have taken over, and for the average rider, the big wheels offer only positives. Originally, I saw Followings all over the bike park. Yeah, it was incredibly capable, but it was still just a 120mm bike. Thankfully, Evil introduced the Wreckoning and offering to follow it up. The Following is now more capable than ever, but still sits firmly on the fast and nimble side of Evil's lineup. And boy did it deliver. I've gotten to ride the current Following on many different trails, but today's ride was definitely a stretch. Evil calls the Following a rally car, and if railing corners and getting sideways is what they meant, that's certainly on point. It's also probably the best jumping 2.9er I've tried. That's not to say I want to take this on massive hits like Blue Steel, but now that I'm relatively comfortable on Mohawk at Galbraith, this bike makes it much more fun. Turning is another area where bikes just keep getting better. The Following was ahead of its time, and the way you sit inside rather than on top this bike is still something Evil does surprisingly better than the competition. In this video, you see a fair amount of its abilities to handle high speed and some pretty steep terrain.
Man.
Even with only 112mm of traction, the Following maintains composure, even when I couldn't.
Short travel 29er. It's definitely noticeable when things are this steep.
I wouldn't use the cliche of saying it felt like more than 120, but I would say that the way it used its travel was commendable.
Yeah. Dude.
Hell yeah.
Oh, that's pretty rad.
I don't know if you guys know this, but
That's running sick.
this bike is not made for
That kind of
that
Did
kind
you
of stuff.
hear how hard I bottomed my fork out?
Where?
Dude, it was the hardest I think I bottomed a fork out in a long time.
Well, I had trouble with that rhythm on
On-
that, the Smuggler I had
Yeah.
too. Like they're so underdamped, it seems
Wow.
like.
Yeah,
On
that's
the
not a very big.
In this ride specifically, I used all the travel, more than I would have liked, and probably would install a volume reducer for myself. Lastly, let's chat about the head angle, as I'm sure I'm going to get a comment or two. Some of you will say it's not slack enough. And for you, pick up the Works Components angle set.
Jesus.
It's available right on Evil's website. But I'd push back and say, while you're correct to some extent, I keep seeing overforked bikes that ruin the handling. If you need a slacker head tube, maybe get some more travel as well. The only place I noticed the 66.4 degree head tube was on the faster steep terrain. And when I say steep, I mean steeper than nearly anything I've encountered in Colorado and Utah. On fast terrain, I enjoyed the Following's nimble manners, and when things got chunky, I was happy to get up and over anything I wanted. I even managed a personal first
New
with
things
this
are
rock roll.
scary.
I've only seen this thing once before. I was alone and rode away, but with the crew, I wasn't going to let the bike be my excuse. Things this steep, it's not about head angle as much as commitment and travel.
Attaboy. There you go.
Almost didn't stop. That's a fun one. Bike loves these little jumps. Super fun, fast.
If you've got a good joke about casing a jump, let her rip, and there's more to come.
Ooh. That was not great.
Take that bicycle.
Figure out what this bike can handle for bottoming.
So who's this bike for? For me, it's a strong contender for a short travel ripper. I really enjoyed my Santa Cruz 5010, and while I went for that over the tall boy, if I wanted dual 29-inch wheels, I think I'd take the following.
And back riding the real steep stuff on the real little bike.
Who else? Well, if you're trying to get your recovering spandex buddy out for some legit downhill, this bike makes sense. They won't need to sacrifice their KOM. If you want a fast and fun bike and don't intend to push the limit, the following is still a great choice. That little extra black magic goes a long way to keep your rubber side down.
Whoa. Sorry. Woo. Everyone was taking different lines and
Yeah. I tried to go hard to the inside.
Final thoughts. I'd say Evil did it again, but it's more a matter of I haven't ridden this bike in a while. I've been pretty enthralled with mixed wheels as of late, and I don't necessarily think that's going to change. If I bought an Evil today, it would probably still be the Insurgent. However, dual 29-inch wheels cover ground like mixed wheels can't. If a 120mm trail bike is what you're looking for, then in many ways the following is still ahead of the curve.
woo. Oh, that was spicy.